I'm Miss Shacklett, and today I'm going to show you how to make a pinch pot. So to start, you want a small apple-sized chunk of clay. I've cut it off from my large block of clay and shaped it into kind of a round apple-y shape. I'm going to take it in my non-dominant hand, right in the palm of my hand, and I'm going to slowly press my dominant thumb into the ball of clay. So what this is doing is forming a channel from which you're going to start pinching the inside of the pot. So eventually this is going to become something like this, and then one day it'll be something like this. So with your thumb inside the clay, you're going to pinch with 2 fingers together, slowly around the outside of the clay. As you start to do this, you're going to notice that the clay is moving and expanding. The hole is going to widen up, and the clay piece is going to get taller as well. It's good to take some deep breaths while you're pinching. You don't want to go too fast. It's really easy if you go fast to have a very awkward shape that you won't like. So just slow down. You might want some music on the background to help you kind of keep going slow and keep breathing. It's okay if the surface of the clay gets a little cracked like mine is. You'll be able to smooth that out later. As you're pinching, you don't want to only pinch at the bottom. You want to start pinching up towards the top. And I'm just rotating the pot in my non-dominant hand to my left hand while I'm pinching, so that I'm getting like an even amount of pinching over the entire surface of the pinch pot. One thing that's good to think about as you're starting to do this is, what do you want your pinch pot to be used for? Your intentions for the pinch pot are going to ultimately determine the shape that you want it to take. So if you want it to be a planter, at some point you'll have to put a hole in the bottom. Maybe you just want a new pencil cup, in which case you'd want it to be taller so that your pencils don't fall out of it. Maybe you're looking for like a catch-all dish, in which case you might want it to be wider, like mine is starting to kind of open up and be wider. So I'm just moving around still with my fingers pinching close together. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my thumb on the inside and gently pull up against the clay just to make sure it's all uniform and kind of push it out a little bit more at the bottom. And while I'm doing that, my fingers are kind of cushioning it on the outside so that I don't accidentally poke through. So one thing that's good to do anytime you're working with 3D objects, like a pinch pot or anything else, is it's good to set it down and look at it from all angles. Since it's a 3D object, it's 3-dimensional, it doesn't have a front or a back. The whole area is going to be looked at and observed. So it's good to just kind of see what's going on. You might notice that it's slouching to one side or the other, and you'll have a chance to fix that. Once you get the pot to be a shape that you like, you can use your thumb and your fingers to slowly start smoothing out the surface of the clay, because you don't want there to be any cracks. So you'll spend some time doing that. We'll do it on the outside too. And when I'm smoothing the outside, I have my fingers on the inside of the pot, just to kind of give it a little bit more structure. Right now the clay is fresh out of the bag, so it's very plastic, and by that I mean it's very malleable, and it would be easy to just squish the pot that I'm making. So having some support on the inside is really, really helpful. So this is a long process. You'll again want to take your time smoothing out but I think at this point you get the picture. So we'll set that aside. And then these two pots I made earlier, and I left them out to dry, so they're both leather hard, which means they're not as floppy or as wet as this one that I am just working on. You can see that it's not going to move. This one's actually pretty hard at this point. This pot is a little bit better example of leather hard. It's still a little wet, but I wouldn't squish it. It would kind of break if I squished it at this point. And you can see how I smoothed out the surface of this one. So at this point, if you want your pot to become a planter instead of maybe just a catch-all, you can flip it over and you'll want to cut a hole in the bottom with your needle tool. And that's just going to allow any water to drain out, because if you're putting plants in it, the last thing you want those plants is to drown in their pots. So it's important to have a drain hole. But again, you don't have to do this if you don't want it to be a planter, or if you have a plant that you're just going to keep it in a plastic pot, you don't have to do that either. So you're never stuck with your decisions here. I'm just smoothing out the inside. Something that you can do for your pots is add surface decoration. So you can see on this pinch pot that was glazed, someone has spent time adding textures to the surface. This one not so much. And then on my example that I made here, I used the needle tool to kind of start to draw into the clay. So I definitely encourage you all to really play around with this, maybe look up examples of pinch pot online, and you can see the really different and wonderful things that artists are doing with them. And of course, do something that you like. If you like polka dots, that's good. If you don't like polka dots, maybe don't do polka dots. That's totally okay. And then as you're working on your pot, you might think, oh, I need some feet for the pot. So for example, this pinch pot that's already made has a coil that's been attached to the bottom, and that allows it to just kind of sit up a little bit higher. There are two ways that you can add a foot or feet to the bottom. You can do a coil like here. So someone just rolled out like a snake-like piece of clay and then stuck it on the bottom of the pot, slipping and scoring. But I am going to do little feet to the bottom of my pot. And to do that, I'm just going to make 3 kind of even-sized lumps of clay. 2. If you want a shape that's not round, you're welcome to make that for your own pot. It's really up to you. I'm going to flip my pot over, smooth out the bottom a little bit. You do have different tools, so your rib tools you can always use to smooth out the surface of the clay more, like so. Kind of like it the way that it is though. So anyways, so before you add the feet, it's really important that you slip and score. So if I were to just kind of smush this foot on, when the clay dries, your foot will fall off, and that's really sad, and you don't want that to happen. So what you need to do for your feet to stick on, anything that you want to add on to a piece of pottery, when you're taking like one piece and adding it to another, you need to slip and score. So first you're going to score the item, just kind of doing like a cross hatching. Here what you're doing is like creating a texture so that it's able to adhere to the pot itself. And then on the bottom of the pot, you want to do the same thing. Then with your finger, you just want to add a little bit of water, so that's the slip part. What we just did here is called scoring. and then you can put it on. And then using one of your tools or perhaps your finger, you'll just kind of blend that lump of clay in a little bit more so that it stays. And then because the lump is still malleable, I can shape it. I'm just trying to get like a nice circle-y thing, and then I'll blend in the rest of this to the pot. And I'll just repeat the same steps. So scoring on here as well. Then we'll slip and press it on. And then blend it in. It's pretty easy. Alright, so now that I've added these feet on, I'm going to leave it upside down. If I put it right side up, for the feet to become leather hard, they would kind of squish down. And I would like them to remain kind of round, so I'll just keep my pot upside down. And that's how you make a pinch pot. So things to remember are to go slow, keep your fingers together when you're pinching, and it's always good to think about what you want your pot to be when it's done, so that that can inform what it looks like at the end. Happy pinch potting!